So hello and welcome back to the channel. Now today I want to talk about what makes a good crime drama and compare and contrast that to what I think is a pretty poorly written crime drama, Jade City. Now when this book came out, people gave it a lot of praise and they called it the godfather of fantasy novels. And respectfully, I just do not see where that praise was coming from, honestly. I think this book deserves a lot of praise for sure. I think it has a really cool fantasy in here. I think the theology, the spirituality in the novel is really cool. I think this book has one of the best magic systems, power systems I've seen in anything, honestly, from anime to manga to literature. One of the best power systems in Jade that I think I've ever seen. I really like Jade. I really like the concept of Jade. I just don't think it really stuck the landing when it came to the crime drama aspects of the story. And if you don't believe me, if you think it's a good crime drama, I implore you to read this or reread it and then watch something like The Shield or watch Snowfall and tell me it evokes similar emotions. If you say it does, I honestly just don't believe you. I would just think you're lying, to be honest with you. Now, with that being said, I think Snowfall and I think The Shield are not perfect shows. There's definitely things to criticize in the writing and the characters, but they nail the crime drama aspects of their series. That's what makes them good entries in that specific genre. So I want to talk about some things, some themes, and some moments that you might find in really good crime dramas and compare and contrast that to Jade City. So with that being said, there's going to be full spoilers for Jade City. There's going to be spoilers for Snowfall, and there's going to be very minor spoilers for Breaking Bad. Nothing too crazy, but I'm going to get into it a little bit, so just fair warning. So one of the things that usually pops up in a really good crime drama is a moment or moments where the characters, the protagonists, have reason to fear or be anxious of their allies. So what do I mean by that? Tuco from Breaking Bad. When this guy is introduced, right, you see that right off the bat, he is a violent, erratic, unstable, meth addicted sociopath. Like, his own gang does not even trust him. His own peers don't even trust him. He can't even trust himself. You know nothing good can happen from going into business with this dude. But Jesse and Walter need him. If they want to make any money selling meth, they need to go through him. I think an even better example of this is in Snowfall. So for some context for people that have not seen Snowfall, at this point in the story, Franklin is making some money selling dope. And this is kind of getting out there. It's not really a secret anymore. So these guys follow him to where he's getting paid at this nightclub. They stand outside the nightclub, they jump him when he gets out, and they steal his money, right? So he spends the episode trying to, find out where they stay, try to hunt them down. So he finds their address, he stalks it out, and he waits for a good time. But he's really nervous, and he's kind of scared about doing this himself, and with just him and his friend. Right? He talks a big game, but at this point in the story, he is very street wise and not exactly street smart. So him and his friend go and they get some local gangster to pretty much come with them as muscle, and he promises him like a finder's fee, basically. So they go to the house, they ambush the dude, they tie him up, they're beating the shit out of him. They're trying to get him to spill on where the money is, but he's not trying to go for it. He spits blood in like Franklin's face, and he gets really pissed off. So the guy that they brought with them to help gets really impatient as well. He grabs the dude, pulls him into a room, locks the door behind him, and you just hear wailing and pounding and screaming. And this goes on for some time. And Franklin is talking to his boy, and he's like, dude, what am I gonna do? Like, if he kills him? Like, I can't get my money back from a corpse, man. He's killing them in there. Then they listen really, really closely to what's going on in that room. And his friend turns to him and says, hey man, he ain't killing them in there. He's giving it to him. So now immediately, Franklin has two problems when he had one. Right? Because they open this door, and what happens is that the guy that they brought with them to help just takes the money. Because it was in there. And he already found out where the money was. But he just felt like fucking the dude anyway. So he takes the money. And then the guy that robbed him in the first place just got fucked in the ass for 10 minutes. So that guy is either going to kill you or you're going to have to kill him. because he is not letting that shit slide. He's not gonna just forget about this and brush it off. Happens. Price of doing business. Nah, man, he's a fucking op for life. And then the guy that you brought to help, who's straight up evil, like straight up the devil, just took your money. So if you want your money back, you got to go through him. In this one scene, you see exactly how Franklin is pulled farther into this life of crime and violence than he really wanted to go, than he ever intended to go. Things get really out of hand very quickly because he trusted the wrong people, because he made allies he shouldn't have. Now, I bring both of these up as examples because they happen fairly early on in the shows that they come from. And I think Jade City wastes so much time in its early going having the family just bicker over nothing. Like literally fight each other bloody for no reason. It really made no sense. It did not make them seem like hardened criminals. It did not make them seem like gangsters. It made them seem like petty, stupid children. It was really annoying. I felt like it was a giant waste of time, and explained like who the characters were, but not very well. It didn't explain them in the setting that the way it should have, I think. And also, they had no reason to fear any of their allies, to fear anyone that they chose to trust. The only person they ever had to worry about was their father's friend who betrayed them. And had they just, put a bullet in his head and killed him, everything would have been fine. It would have been a complete non-issue. And I get why they, let him live, why they let him survive, because, their father has dementia, he's kind of fading, and that friend, even though he's a traitor, was one of the few people their father actually liked talking to, and actually seemed like alive when he was talking to. So they wanted to keep him alive, just for a little longer. But when I read that, I assumed that friend, that traitor, had just died off screen at some point. Because I was reading it, and from the pacing at least, it seemed like that happened like months later. And then they, say the thing about him escaping or whatever, and I'm like, dude, he's not dead already? So it really just felt like the characters were in a story that they did not belong in. And I think that's a problem with this, is that it has one villainous character, Hilo, and then the rest of them are squeaky clean. The rest, I think Shay, Lon, and Andy could be in any other fantasy story, and their character traits would not have to change in the slightest for them to fit into any other fantasy story. They do not feel like they belong in a crime drama, okay? They're just far too squeaky clean. They're far too affable. They're far too likable. And I know a crime drama can have likable characters, but you need to see what they're capable of. You need to see that they belong in the story, that they can realistically survive in the setting that they are, right? I feel like these motherfuckers should have been wiped out a long time ago. It honestly surprised me that the only reason that any of them died was basically by a fucking heart attack, right? They all should have gotten massacred like decades ago. That shit's crazy. And I simply just don't think it works to have all of your unreasonable villainous actions put on one character. Hilo is the villainous character. Everything that's violent is done by him. All of the killing for the most part is done by him. All of the cruel things are done by him. All of the unreasonable things are done by him. And the rest of them are likable. They have a good head on their shoulders. They don't do anything too out of character, anything too wild. And that just does not make... It would be like if in Breaking Bad, right? Jesse is the one making all the meth, killing all the people, disposing of all the bodies, going to war with all these, gangsters, all these drug lords, while Walter is just sitting by his pool, sipping Mai Tais, playing with the sun, being a good dad and shit, right? That wouldn't make sense why they're in the same boat. That wouldn't make sense why they have a vested interest in protecting each other from the police, from violence, from warlords, from gangsters, right? I think they need to be bonded a little bit more in their activities. The other consistency of almost every other crime drama story is that the main protagonist, or at least our point of view character, is villainous, or they become villainous over the course of the story. Sometimes they become more of an anti-hero, or they start as an anti-hero. And I think Shay does not really change in any way that I find memorable or noteworthy, and neither is her character. So with all that being said, let's do a Jade City rewrite. Now this is just going to be for the first book. I have not read Jade Legacy or Jade War, and honestly I really don't want to, because I don't want to read 1,000 pages just to see where a fairly predictable story is going to end up. So if any of my rewrites kind of touch on what happens later on in the story, you guys can let me know in the comments. You know, you can spoil it for me. I'm really not too pressed, but I just ain't reading all that to figure it out. So in this Jade City rewrite, right, it's going to be for the most part the same setup. I'm not going to change anything. But in this version of the story, let's say that Jade smuggling and Shine smuggling is really touching every corner of the world. It's getting everywhere, and it's falling into the wrong hands. It's getting in the hands of like warlords, gangsters and cartels and terrorists, right? But because of the nature of Jade, it's so commonly betrayed for, it's so commonly stolen, killed for. So it's very hard to track who's responsible and who had it at what time. You know, you can't put a serial number on Jade. So because of this, there is a huge pressure on the politicians of Kekon to put a lid on this, to give an explanation about why this is happening and how it's happening, who's responsible. But naturally, the Kekonese government is going to resist foreign powers. They just fought a civil war to free themselves. So they're not going to just let foreign, intelligence just come in and police their resources. Absolutely not. But behind the scenes, they would all be putting a lot of pressure on these mafia families to explain themselves, to put an end to this, or at least control it, slow it down a little bit. So in this version of the story, Shay, who went to school in basically Spain, is coming back, but this time she's going to be an informant. So she was working for the CIA, KGB, MI6 kind of operation. So her job is to come back, reestablish her old relationships with her family, and try and investigate and find out who is smuggling Jade, how they're smuggling Jade, and all that good stuff. So she has no idea if her family's involved. But when she finds out they're not involved, she is really happy about that. That's a lot of stress off her shoulders. When Hilo is willing to trust her with investigating some of the, blue collar crime, or sorry, white collar crime that's happening around Jade smuggling and Jade mining, she is ecstatic. Because now, Shay's job is just to keep her entire family alive long enough through this gang war for them to essentially just cop a plea from whatever agency investigates all this and prosecutes who they need to prosecute. I think in this version of the story, right, Lon's death would have a much bigger impact, because Lon is the only person I could see who has, influence inside the mafia, is respected, maybe not so much lately because of his wife and everything, but does still have his respect, does still have, his power. And I think he is one of the few people that would be willing to cooperate with the authorities. So when he dies, Shay is kind of all alone. Her escape plan has just lost one of its legs. Because Andy, he's just too young. He doesn't have the hair on his chest. No one really respects him, right? So if he flees, it's going to be a really bad look. And Hilo, on the other hand, he seems very snitches get stitches. So I don't really see him working with the, working with the cops, working with the feds. I think this version of the story would have a lot more natural tension in it, because Shay would have a reason to be fearful of her own family. She still loves them. She doesn't want anything bad to happen to them, but she cannot trust them with all the information she knows. She knows if she tells them, if she gets drunk one night and lets something slip, she might be, locked in a box like their dad's old friend was. In addition, let's say, random plot point. Let's say she's getting these covert messages from someone. There's already someone like a foot soldier on the inside that just gives her messages. She doesn't know who they are. They don't know who she is, for both of their safeties. But then one day, one of their foot soldiers just disappears out of the blue, and she asks Hilo about it, like, hey, what happened to that one guy? Yada yada yada. What's his face? And Hilo's like, oh yeah, We found out he was a rat, so we cut his tongue out and threw him off the bridge. Anyway, what do you want for dinner? I think that would give Shay a natural reason to be very afraid. And everyone else that can sense this because of her Jade. Oh, I didn't even think about that. The whole thing about her not wanting to wear Jade. That would make a lot more sense if she doesn't want people to so openly and easily see her emotions. Because if they're going to see she's very nervous all the time. She's hiding something. So in general, I just don't think that Jade City works too well as a crime drama. But I think the same exact story, the same exact setup, with the same exact characters, just written as more of an espionage story, would be excellent. Would be amazing. I think I would enjoy it a lot more. So that is all I got for you guys today. Let me know what you think of my rewrite. If you've read especially Jade City, and Jade War and Jade Legacy, let me know what you thought of this rewrite of my version of the story. If you guys like content like this, please subscribe. Please ring that bell icon, drop a like, because I'm going to be making a lot more videos like this very, very soon. Thank you so much. Have a great day.